Cody Rhodes was positioned to become the next face of WWE, a figure who could bridge the past and future of professional wrestling through a combination of legacy, charisma, and fan connection. Everything seemed aligned for him to ascend to that echelon. He had the lineage, returning triumphantly to the company after reinventing himself outside the WWE system, and brought a fresh aura that few returning stars have ever carried. His story was organically built and emotionally resonant, especially with fans who followed his journey from Stardust to the visionary behind All Elite Wrestling and finally back to WWE. It was an arc rooted in real-life struggle, perseverance, and triumph, making him uniquely relatable and aspirational. Fans didn't just support him, they believed in him. They wanted him to win, not just for himself, but as a symbolic win for passion and authenticity in wrestling. Yet, despite all this, WWE failed him. They forgot him. Not in a literal sense, but in the creative and emotional prioritization that defines who thrives in the company and who becomes background noise. Cody Rhodes wasn't buried, but he was bypassed. And in a world where timing is everything, the consequences of that oversight are monumental. His return at WrestleMania 38 was treated with all the spectacle worthy of a megastar. The fans erupted as he emerged to face Seth Rollins, and the moment carried the weight of a man who had left as an unappreciated mid-carder only to return as a headline-worthy attraction. For a while, WWE seemed to understand the gravity of what they had. Cody cut passionate promos that resonated with both casual viewers and hardcore wrestling fans. He was positioned as a top-tier babyface and looked primed for a main event run, injuring himself just before Hell in a Cell and still wrestling the match only further elevated his legend. The crowd rallied behind him, not because he was protected by booking, but because he demonstrated grit that felt authentic. His arc felt rare in a landscape filled with manufactured drama, but the seeds of WWE's mishandling were planted early. The company treated his feud with Seth Rollins as an endgame rather than a launchpad. Once it concluded, there was a vacuum. There was no immediate upward momentum, no elevation into the world title picture, and instead, Cody was allowed to drift. When he returned from injury in time for the Royal Rumble, fans assumed the path was clear. He would win the Rumble, headline WrestleMania, and finally finish the story by claiming the title that had eluded his family. He won the Rumble as expected, but even that victory was handled with a kind of hesitant polish. WWE didn't make his win feel inevitable in the sense of narrative closure. They made it feel manufactured, as if they were going through the motions rather than committing to the idea that this was the future of the company. That distinction matters because wrestling fans respond to conviction. The build to WrestleMania 39 became about Cody chasing Roman Reigns, but the emotional investment started to feel diluted. Roman's dominance had become tiresome for many, yet WWE seemed obsessed with preserving his reign above all else. Cody's story was deeply emotional, his father's legacy, the family dream, and the struggle for validation, but it was treated more like a subplot within the broader Bloodline saga. When WrestleMania 39 arrived, fans were ready. They wanted the crowning moment. Instead, WWE chose to extend Roman's reign, delivering a shock that betrayed the emotional logic of storytelling. This wasn't just about Cody losing, it was about WWE missing the perfect opportunity to anoint someone who had organically become the heart of their product. Fans didn't just want him to win, they needed him to. It was supposed to be his time, but WWE, driven by metrics, merchandise, and an obsession with record-breaking title reigns, refused to pull the trigger. They sacrificed Cody's momentum to protect Roman's numbers. It wasn't a choice rooted in drama, it was a business decision, and the fans could tell. That loss at WrestleMania 39 wasn't just a misstep, it was a narrative fracture. Cody went from the focal point of the company to an afterthought in the main event scene. He remained on TV, he kept delivering strong promos, and he maintained fan support, but the urgency was gone. The arc had lost its peak, and nothing WWE did afterward restored that energy. The aftermath was filled with missed chances. Cody feuded with Brock Lesnar in a program that, while competitive, felt like filler. It didn't serve his character development or advance his goal of becoming champion. There were no emotional stakes, no long-term ramifications, just matches for the sake of matches. WWE placed him in holding patterns, and each week that passed without a clear direction made his journey feel less important. Fans still chanted for him, still wore his merchandise, still treated him as a star, but WWE treated him like he had already peaked. They assumed his popularity was self-sustaining and didn't require careful narrative tending. That kind of assumption is what ruins potential. Wrestling characters, no matter how beloved, require evolution and payoff. Cody was evolving as a performer, but the creative refused to meet him there. Then came WrestleMania 40, a moment that should have been his redemption. Fans had waited a full year. They had watched him rebuild, refocus, and re-establish his claim. Once again, he was set to face Roman Reigns, and once again, the stage was set for glory, but WWE couldn't resist overcomplicating the picture. They inserted The Rock into the Bloodline story, pushing Cody to the periphery of the most important feud. Despite fan backlash, WWE seemed determined to position The Rock as the central figure, with Cody reduced to a side character in his own saga. The optics were terrible. The emotion of Cody's journey was drowned in Hollywood spectacle. spectacle. The company's priorities were clear. They cared more about short-term attention than long-term investment. Even though Cody eventually won at WrestleMania 40, the win didn't feel earned in the way it once could have. The emotional temperature had cooled. The finish lacked the spark of true catharsis. It was a recovery, not a triumph. Fans were happy, but they weren't transformed by it. The story hadn't been finished. It had been delayed and diluted. After the title win, Cody's reign began, but instead of launching into compelling storylines that would cement his legacy, he was given lukewarm feuds with little creative urgency. WWE again treated him like a placeholder champion, someone meant to hold the belt until something bigger came along. The creative lacked imagination, failing to introduce new challenges, fresh rivalries, or deeper emotional arcs. The fans had done their part. They had stayed loyal, stayed vocal, and stayed present. But WWE didn't reward that faith. They didn't make Cody's title reign feel like the centerpiece of the company. Instead, they kept focusing on the remnants of the bloodline, on whatever part-timer could grab attention, on anything but Cody himself. The man who was once seen as the embodiment of the company's future was no longer central to its vision. This wasn't just a case of bad storytelling. It was a reflection of WWE's systemic issue with long-term investment. They build stars until they reach a peak, then hesitate. They become infatuated with moments and forget about narratives. They use emotional storylines to sell tickets, then ignore the importance of resolution. Cody Rhodes was a once-in-a-generation opportunity. He wasn't just a good wrestler. He was a wrestler with a story that transcended performance. He stood for something real, and WWE had all the tools to make him iconic. Instead, they allowed time, distractions, and ego to strip that opportunity away. WWE could have made Cody the face of their new era. He could have become the ambassador of change, a figure who honored the past but symbolized the future. His journey from rejected mid-carder to self-made icon could have been immortalized with consistency, patience, and storytelling integrity. Instead, they gave him an uneven path littered with false starts, emotional betrayals, and late-stage consolation. The fans still support him, but the company no longer sees him the way they once did. He's no longer the centerpiece. He's no longer the obvious successor to John Cena or Roman Reigns. He's a champion who had to fight against his own company's indecision just to be acknowledged. And that reality is damning. Wrestling is about moments, but it's also about the roads taken to get there. Cody's road was long, hard, and inspiring, but WWE turned that road into a loop. They delayed the finish line so long that when he finally crossed it, it felt like something had been lost. WWE forgot what made Cody special. They forgot the emotional power of his return, the urgency of his redemption arc, and the unique position he held as both a modern star and a legacy act. They treated him like a chapter in someone else's book, rather than the author of his own destiny. But we had a golden opportunity to elevate Cody Rhodes as the face of the company, potentially their biggest star of the future. But through a series of misguided booking decisions, inconsistent storytelling, and missed moments, they squandered that potential and derailed what could have been a monumental legacy. Cody Rhodes, once dubbed the heir to the throne, had all the ingredients of a transcendent superstar: the charisma, the mic skills, the family legacy, the crowd connection, and the ability to deliver in big match moments. Yet WWE slowly killed that momentum and altered his perception in the eyes of fans through repeated failures to capitalize on his popularity and the emotional weight of his narrative. When Cody returned to WWE in 2022 at WrestleMania 38, it was framed as a seismic event. His return from AEW carried symbolic meaning. He wasn't just another talent, he was the statement of change. WWE positioned him as a top-tier babyface with a deeply personal goal to finish the story and win the WWE Championship, something his father, Dusty Rhodes, never achieved. The narrative was emotionally rich and tailor-made for a WrestleMania payoff, and when Roman Reigns defeated him at WrestleMania 39, WWE made its first massive mistake. Many fans were willing to wait one more year, assuming WWE was delaying gratification for a more iconic win, but this decision immediately started to raise doubt. Cody's defeat cooled off his momentum. Rather than being seen as a nearly untouchable top guy, he was instead categorized as just another guy Roman beat. What came next compounded the damage. WWE placed Cody in a holding pattern. Instead of positioning him as the clear centerpiece of Raw or giving him meaningful career-defining feuds, they wasted time with mid-card level storylines that didn't elevate his character or build the urgency of his quest. Feuds with Brock Lesnar helped his credibility somewhat, but they felt repetitive and lacked long-term stakes. Each week, Cody would cut passionate promos while the creative gave him little of substance to move forward. The fans still chanted for him and stayed invested, but WWE treated that goodwill like it was permanent rather than something they needed to nurture. Then came the worst creative decision in modern WWE memory. Cody Rhodes once again lost to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. Despite a full year of build-up, endless merchandise, and emotional storytelling, WWE chose to prolong Roman's reign and inserted The Rock into the Bloodline saga in a way that sidelined Cody's importance. Fans were ready for a coronation. Instead, they got betrayal. WWE failed to recognize that Cody's arc needed closure. The company treated his story like a subplot in the broader bloodline drama, and that diluted his role as the hero. Cody went from feeling like the guy to a guy standing near the important guys. In the biggest moment of his career, WWE told fans, "Not yet," and the audience's patience wore thin.